because I finished all my stuff today in sewing class. Great, because I am so tired. I feel like I need a nap. I still have work tonight. But yeah, we got some extra time. So today we did what's called a bagged out seam. Oh, I look sunburned. I mean, I was just in the sun. Unless it's the filter. So this is called a bagged out seam. So the seam is referring to this edge. So it's bagged out because it's like an enclosed space, and then we've inverted it, and it doesn't have like any lip or anything like that, or it's not meant to. And then we've just done some top stitching on it. So you would use this on like a collar or the edge of something. The other thing we did was make an apron. I'm using similar techniques to the bag the other day. It's just calico because that's what we had. But it has a proper content and care label. So it's like legitimate and available for sale. Well, it would be legally available for sale. We've got this pleated edge here, so it was like the top edge was folded twice and then stitched down and then unfolded, so it would have been more like, this. So the rough edge is encased in that space and then unfolded and stitched down like that. I think normally you would do a thinner than this, but yeah. Apparently we're going to do stuff like dye and print on this in textiles class, so we'll see. Here it is. It's a little long on me, so I've had to like fold it up a bit, but that's the straps around the collar, but that's how the pattern was, so I didn't really want to mess it up too much in case that affected, you know, the grade or whatever. But yeah, that's what we made today. In textiles yesterday, we were looking at some fiber characteristics, like how different fibers behave and things. So we're looking at cotton, which is a plant cellulose fiber, linen, which is a plant cellulose fiber, wool, which is an animal protein fiber. But some things to note is, you know, like if you have a fabric and it doesn't have a content label on it, like how are we going to find out what's in it? So you can do a burn test. So we did this at school where you like burn a little piece of it and test results. So a little bit of science. Cellulose fibers will burn with like a nice orange flame and like a light gray smoke and like a light ash, whereas you know, like in a wool, in protein, it smells like burning hair. As the protein reacts, it creates like a crushable ash instead of a light soft ash, and when you take it away from fire, it stops immediately catching, like it doesn't keep burning unless it's constantly added fire. So wool is good for being flame retardant in that it doesn't stay on fire when it's caught alight. Whereas things like synthetics will melt and have a horrible chemical smell, and they'll turn like black and gross, and yeah. So until a few years ago, cotton used to be the world's most popular or most used fiber in textiles. It's now polyester. It's cheaper to produce, faster to produce, has a different environmental impact. I'm not going to say like better or worse because they both have bad environmental impacts. Like our textiles class was really depressing, to be honest, because we, you know, when you're talking a lot about sustainability, we're showing how much the fashion industry wastes and contributes to global warming on an industrial, a commercial, and an individual scale. Sucks. And I'm just sitting here like I already knew I was gonna, like, if I'm working in a label or if I have my own label, like, be really environmentally conscientious about the choices I make and, you know, the sources of your materials and like all the like responsibilities you have like on each step in production, not just your end production step. You know, like sourcing the materials and it being transported around the planet and the labor and everything there. And I found this when I was like doing research for the emerging textiles, but Australia does not have a textiles recycling program of any sort. You'll see at like big shopping centers like collection bins for old clothes and stuff, And depending on the branding on those bins, like some of those will go to like, you know, Vinnie's or other charitable organizations like that. But one, a majority of the stuff that goes in those bins is not usable. If there's a stain, a button missing, it's worn through, it smells funny, it was not put in the bin properly and got rain on it, it's going in the trash. Like, it's going in landfill. And not just Australia's landfill, like a lot of the stuff gets like exported, you know, as like a charity thing or whatever, to countries overseas. And the biggest one here is in Ghana, in Accra, where they get huge shipping containers worth of textile leftovers from the whole planet, and like every day sort through it all, and anything that sucks, even a little bit, just gets dumped in a massive landfill pile or in a really dangerous like fire, like one of these landfill things set on fire and had to be capped, like it's still burning underneath the cap. Like, yeah, I think Foreign Correspondent did something on it a couple weeks ago, which was timed really well with me doing the research. I think they called it Dead White Man's Clothes or something similar. Okay, I kind of just said Dead White Man on the internet, but Dead White Man's Clothes, Accra, maybe Ghana, something like that. It's depressing, and like I knew this stuff because we looked at it in high school years ago, and I'm like over 10 years ago, and it's not better. Like, some companies are better. Like, I remember distinctly in geography class looking at Nike's child labor abuses, and apparently that's better now. You know, H&M moving to all organic cotton, meaning it got use of pesticides. Yeah, so the industry can be a bit depressing. Okay, back to textiles. So if you know, when you get a cotton plan, it's like a little puff ball of fibers. So they'll either comb it or card it, and that might depend on the quality of the crop that they've gathered and how they've gathered it, depending on the machines they've gathered it with. So if you're combing it, you're dragging out all the individual fibers, and the longer the fiber, the stronger the yarn will be, and therefore it's a better quality and a higher cost. So that's where you get better quality cotton from. The normal way cotton is like milled, I guess. I think I have another word. Is called carding before it gets spun, and it goes to a cotton gin. I think that's what they call the facility that processes the cotton is a cotton gin. And it just goes on this big machine, like whirs it around and pulls out the fibers, and will then feed it into like a spinning, like spindle. That was the word, spindle. Obviously, that's gonna not be as particular about the length of the fibers, and that's the most common kind of cotton. There's a lot of water use and pesticide and transport, like things going from the farm to the gin to the dyers to like distributors to factories to like stores to you. Like, there's so many steps along the way. Synthetics have increased in production and decreased in price. So that's where the shift is there. Majority of the stuff I own is synthetic. It's cheap as fuck. Wool was the other one we were talking about. I don't know why wool uses a different terminology to everything else. You know, like how you have weft and warp, and wool does coarse and wale. Their equivalent of combed is called worsted. So that'll be like a woolen suit. It's finer, it's combed, whereas fluffy carded wool is literally called woolen wool, and it's, you know, it's the shorter fibers. It's got more volume and curl to it for jumpers. Fun fact I learned about silkworms, you know, for when they produce silk. So I don't know how many people know like how silk is actually attained. So silkworm, the particular kind of bug, they have like racks and racks of their little cocoons growing, so kind of like a bee farm kind of thing, like with trays of these little cocoons growing. And the cocoon is technically one really, 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 really long fiber, like kilometers long, and it's just all curled and condensed and coiled up into the cocoon. And when the worm is like done being in there and it's like it's time to be bigger bug now, it like breaks out one end, so that breaks the filament, so it's no longer one filament. A sustainable way of doing silkworm is letting them out instead of, you know, dunking them all in boiling water. Because they kill the worms. Part of this, they dunk them in boiling water, then extract the fiber, and then the dead worm is you know, it goes into other industries, like it could be in food or other stuff. Where else do you put bugs? Maybe fertilizer? Gets exported. Like, I don't think they just chuck the bugs out because they're usable, even though they're dead. The fun fact I learned was that apparently they eat mulberry leaves specifically. I'm like, surely they eat other stuff, but apparently peak silkworm efficiency is mulberry leaves. There you go. So I still have some more drawing to do, as always, because our assessment is kind of coming to a head now. We're trying to like collate all our drawings into like the proper portfolio for submission and make sure we have everything on the list of what we're submitting. So that's both for drawing and textiles. I think they're both due in week 9, and it's currently week 7, so it's getting close. Also did some practicing on trade drawings. So these are the proportion technical drawings, which I struggle with a little bit because I have very wobbly hands. But we're also going to learn how to do this in Illustrator next week, and I think that is going to appeal to me a lot more than doing it by hand for the big spec sheets and things. Also drew this yesterday. Wonder what it's for. Homework is collating all the drawings for portfolio, making sure my digital ones are up to date, because not only during the paper drawings, I've been photographing them and documenting them on the cloud, on like a Google Doc thing as well, because it would be tragic to me if I lost these folders or something and had nothing to submit. So I'm essentially backing everything up by digitizing it. I've got to tidy up my digital docs for the other classes as well. And we got a pattern today for making masks. It's not part of our assessment, but it was just an extra thing given to us in sewing class today. So maybe we'll make something like that. I'm not going to promise anything stream-wise because if you saw my stream last night, all I'm going to be doing is playing Psychonauts. So pattern making went really well. Do you like my space helmet? Yes, pattern making actually went well this week. I had an epiphany last week about understanding the patterning process, you know, using logic methods over mathematical methods to figure out how to do the patterns, and that made this week so much easier to understand, because even if the teacher didn't explain how she was doing something, I would just have to be like, okay, how would I logically arrive at the point that she's arrived at? And then I was able to understand it and help explain it a little bit to other people. So this week we moved on from skirts to blouses. So I'm using blouse because it's referring to like this kind of shirt rather than like a t-shirt, like a knit shirt, more like a woven shirt. There you could use the block we use for stretches. So the block is basically like a long sleeve t-shirt with like a close to the neck collar. But obviously if you're making that out of a woven fabric, that's not going to be able to fit over a human being's head. Like a knit, you could stretch it, but not a weave. So we will use the block to create a button-up shirt pattern, which is probably the most involved we've got in making a pattern within the short time frame. So I think that just means we're getting better at doing it. So like figuring out, oh, if it's got like a button closed down the front, then cut the pattern in half, extend that section so it overlaps the center, extend it even further so it goes underneath and like up to the collar. So the extra maths there. Figuring out how to shorten the sleeves from long sleeve to short sleeve. Putting a facing around the back neck so it's not just exposed collar. We haven't done the collar itself. I think we're doing that this week, and also the buttonholes this week, like as part of the pattern. But we're making quite the collection of patterns now. There was a bit where we had to lower the collar from high, like just right on the neck, to it's a little bit lower because it's more of a casual button-up shirt. Where, you know, if you lower at the front, we're going to lower by like a centimeter. It's already got a 0.6 seam allowance included, so you don't math out the new distance. You, from the original seam allowance, go down a centimeter, then back up 0.6. That was the method, and that was the bit that was hard to explain and understand, because at the back collar, it's only got 0.5. So you go down 0.5 and then back up 0.6. So, and then you blend the two curves together, so they're not going to line up if you just draw it straight across. So that was the most confusing part. But that was a bit I was like, oh my god, I actually get it now. Well, on actual pattern making day, there was a competition happening at TAFE, which is a national championship, which then goes on to an international championship. It's called World Skills. It's like any trade, anything you do with your hands, it's a competition, and you win like medals, and you go and represent the country, and it's a big conference, and you can get like scholarships and all sorts of stuff. So today they were doing floristry, because they do floristry at our TAFE as well. And so she had a surprise item. You could, because we went and had a look at the room they were doing the competition, and you could see she was preparing for her competition with all her flowers, and they had like a heart ring, where she was going to create a display for, but they had a surprise item, and her surprise item was a hat. She hadn't made something on a hat before, but that was like, you know, they don't tell you until the competition day, like you'll get a surprise item, and that was hers. And in the same room they were doing the fashion as well, so the guy representing Queensland had practiced like every conceivable type of seam and design, and then they get given fabric, which was kind of ugly. It was this black and white weird cat pattern thing. It was like a cotton drill or something, and they get given types so to include in the design. I think he ended up getting gathers, but he's got to design it, he's got to pattern it, he's got to cut it out and construct it, and they have all the machines in there. If it wasn't for Rona, they would be doing this whole thing, like instead of state by state, they were doing it all in one city, and you can like have your personal equipment shipped over, right down to like your personal preferred sewing table and everything. So he had all day to create that, and like the way they market is like, oh, there's gonna be every single seam junction is gonna have like be worth a mark, and every mistake you make is gonna cut 0.75 off that mark. Like it gets really close. So I didn't know this kind of competition existed. I think on the international scale is specifically limited to youth, so you have to be like 22. But at a local level, they don't have an age restriction. But I thought it was cool. Like literally any kind of trade is part of this World Skills Championship, like automotive repair, sound design, fashion, floristry, agricultural stuff. Like if it's a trade, it's in this World Skills Championship, and I thought that was kind of cool, that they have that. Anyway, I don't think I have any other updates. We finally got back to LARP after several weeks of it being off, so thank God. That was fun. Trying out a bow and I made an elbow guard so I don't keep smacking the string into my arm when I have bad form. I've been playing Psychonauts 2 on stream, so definitely come check that out if you haven't already. Please, I don't get so lonely playing games online. Just got to keep up with my homework. It's getting to assessment submission weeks. Like we're going to start week 8, and week 10, 9, 10 is kind of where a lot of the submission stuff is. So I got to make all my portfolios nice. But yeah, we'll see you next week.